Jaime Gao was on a clear path to success. He came from a middle-class Chinese family and was studying business at UTS. On social media, his feed was filled with photos alongside his girlfriend, and to the outside world, he looked like a perfect young man. However, Jaime cultivated an obsession with the criminal underworld. He wanted to be a gangster, and he had big plans to work his way into Sydney's criminal circles. But then, at the very beginning of his criminal career, he suddenly disappeared without a single trace. Where had Jaime gone? Had he been kidnapped, or was he eliminated by a rival power? Rumors surrounding his disappearance spread quickly. Some speculated he was betrayed by his own accomplices, while others suspected a rival gang had removed him as a competitor. So what is the real story behind Jaime's mysterious disappearance, and who was ultimately responsible? This is the story of Jaime Gao. The morning of May 26, 2014 started like any other for a fisherman named Stephen. He and his mate were steering their boat along the coast of Cronulla, looking for a good place to cast their lines. About 2.5 kilometers off Shelley Beach, something broke the pattern of the waves, a large blue bag just floating there. As they steered the boat closer, they saw the bag's zipper wasn't fully done up. Something white was caught in the opening. From a distance, it just looked like a pair of runners, but as they drew alongside it, a chilling detail emerged. It wasn't just a shoe. It was attached to a pale, lifeless foot. Stephen dialed the police, and about 30 minutes later, police boats were on the scene. Stephen later told investigators the victim was small, maybe 170 centimeters tall, looked young, and had Asian features. He also detailed how the body was packaged. It was inside a surfboard bag, which was then wrapped in a heavy tarpaulin and bound with rope. A chain had been attached to the body in an attempt to weigh it down to the ocean floor. The investigators confirmed his initial observations, and soon, through DNA testing, the body that had been drifting in the ocean for days was officially identified. It was Jaime Gao, the university student who had been missing for almost a week. To understand how he got there, we need to look at the path Jaime Gao chose. He had decided that studying and a 9-to-5 office job were not for him. According to his school friend, Jaime confided that he was dropping out of his studies at the university to pursue other things. He told his friend that he wanted to be a gangster and climb the gang hierarchy. His friend would also later tell the court that Jaime had recently grown closer to an old childhood mate, someone who, along with another associate, was reportedly involved in drug supply on a large scale. These guys were apparently living the kind of life Jaime seemed drawn to: big money and no rules. According to friends, Jaime began aligning himself with their crew, which had reported links to a group called Singhua. It's one of Sydney's most notorious and long-standing Chinese organized crime syndicates, and their roots in the city's underworld go back decades. This is the world he was trying to step into. He wasn't just joining a local crew, he was trying to play in a league with a long history and deadly rules. These actions fueled rumors that he had become a low-level member of a Hong Kong triad. It was around this time that Jaime's path crossed with Glenn McNamara, a former New South Wales police detective then working as a private investigator. They first met in January 2014 at a barrister's office. Jaime was there acting as a Cantonese interpreter for his friends, who had been arrested for trafficking ice. McNamara had been hired to do investigative work on their case. He used this opportunity to cultivate Jaime, claiming he was writing a true crime book on the triads and needed him as a research source. However, McNamara was acting as a front for another infamous ex-detective, Roger Rogerson. The real plan was a major drug deal. Jaime would use his Hong Kong connections to import a large quantity of ice, and Rogerson would have buyers lined up to complete the transaction. Over the next 2 months, between March and May of 2014, McNamara and Jaime's contact escalated. They met in person somewhere between 19 and 29 times and constantly swapped text messages. All of it done under the official cover story of research sessions for a book. Apparently, Jaime flew to Hong Kong in late February of 2014, where he caught up with a mix of Sydney and Hong Kong friends and relatives. It was on this trip Jaime was likely to have started work on the deal that would eventually lead to his death. The original deal he put to his contacts was 10 kilograms of ice on credit, with payment in full as soon as it was sold. However, Jaime's contacts felt that 2.7 kilograms of the product would be more appropriate, and if that deal worked to their satisfaction, then the amount would increase. Jaime likely didn't have a choice, and readily agreed. The Hong Kong connection would arrange for the drugs to be curried to Sydney from their sources in mainland China and delivered to Jaime. 2 trusted men would be sent to Australia to keep an eye on Jaime and the deal. Those 2 men apparently left Australia after Jaime's death. The physical pieces of the plan were now being put into place. Roger Rogerson arranged access to a specific location, Unit 803 at a storage facility in Padstow. To get the keys, he told a friend who rented the unit that he was interested in taking over the space and wanted to see if his box trailer would fit. Around the same time, Rogerson also purchased a white Ford Falcon station wagon, the vehicle that would later be used to transport Jaime's body. The plan, later revealed by evidence at the trial, was twofold. It was a drug rip-off combined with an execution. The goal was to steal the drugs from Jaime and then murder him, cutting ties with any possible connection that could lead his Hong Kong suppliers back to them. On May 19, 2014, the final movements began. At 3:15 p.m. that afternoon, extensive surveillance footage captured Roger Rogerson at the Padstow storage unit. He was filmed putting some office furniture into the back of his silver Falcon station wagon. In a strange coincidence, at that very same time, Jaime's white Nissan Silvia was spotted on camera near the public entrance of the storage facility, but he couldn't get inside. The very next day, on May 20, 2014, Jaime sent a text to McNamara thanking him for a drink and suggesting they hang out. At 11:37 a.m., McNamara called Jaime from a payphone at a Cronulla mall. While the content of that call is unknown, it was immediately followed by another text from Jaime at 11:38 a.m. saying he didn't feel like studying and proposed to get lunch. McNamara texted back claiming he was sick and couldn't meet, saying he'd be in touch in a few days. However, despite this text message exchange, McNamara did meet with Jaime. That afternoon, the plan went into motion. At 1:15 p.m., both Rogerson and McNamara were at the Padstow storage facility, preparing Unit 803 for their meeting with Jaime. They then left the facility and drove to the arranged meeting spot on Arab Road, roughly a kilometer away. They parked near a butcher shop called Mix Meats. Rogerson was in his own car, while McNamara waited in the white station wagon for Jaime. At 1:35 p.m., Jaime arrived with 2 other passengers. As planned, Rogerson drove his car away, and Jaime can be seen carrying a backpack walking over to the station wagon and getting inside. The car immediately drove off. A CCTV camera mounted high on the wall of Mix Meats was recording their every move. That camera, along with others back at the storage facility, would provide investigators with a clear video timeline of the day's events. The footage shows that at 1:45 p.m., the white station wagon carrying Jaime and McNamara arrived back at the storage unit. Rogerson, in his own car, followed just a few minutes behind them. Just over 30 minutes after they all went inside, footage shows a silver surfboard cover being pulled out of a car and then a body being dragged and loaded into the boot of the station wagon. 2 hours after leaving the storage unit, Rogerson and McNamara hire a manual hoist to help them lift a heavy load, as Rogerson claimed that they could not lift the body any more than just a few inches off the floor. They were then seen entering a Cronulla apartment with a 6-pack of beers. Likely by now, Jaime's body has been loaded into McNamara's boat in the garage downstairs. The morning on May 21, 2014 at 7:28 a.m., CCTV shows McNamara's car towing the boat out of the apartment complex, and the car is parked on the street. A large object wrapped in a blue tarpaulin was clearly visible inside the boat. Prosecutors would later identify this as the body of Jaime Gao. Just a few minutes later at 7:32 a.m., McNamara and Rogerson are seen in the lift as they leave the apartment with 2 fishing rods. Their trial heard they then dumped the body at sea. On May 21, 2014, Jaime's parents went to the police to report their son missing after not hearing from him for several days. When police spoke to his friends, they learned about a recent gathering in mid-May where Jaime had drunkenly boasted about a business deal that would make him rich. Friends also told investigators that on the day he disappeared, Jaime had said he was going to meet a man named Glenn. That name was the key. Jaime already told one of his close friends that he was in regular contact with a private investigator by that name and that a major drug deal was about to go down. At this point, it wasn't hard for police to start putting the pieces together. Rogerson and McNamara were still going about life as if nothing had happened, even seen drinking with friends at the Crown Hotel. Just before 10 p.m. on May 23rd, McNamara returned home in the white station wagon that that was used to transport the body. At 4:50 a.m. the next morning, police secretly seized the vehicle from his car park. Inside, they found 2.78 kilograms of ice hidden beneath the front seat. On May 25th, McNamara was arrested while driving. The next day, May 26th, Jaime Gao's body was discovered floating at sea. On May 27th, Rogerson was arrested at his home, right in front of a waiting media pack. With both men in custody, the stage was set for a high-profile murder trial. The prosecution had a mountain of physical evidence, but the jury would now hear two wildly different versions of what happened inside that storage unit, one from each of the accused. The forensic evidence from inside the storage unit was clear. Jaime Gao had taken 2 hits with a .25 caliber pistol. Gunshot residue was found inside the pocket of Roger Rogerson's pants. Glenn McNamara's story was one of a planned robbery. He testified that Rogerson arrived at the storage unit without the payment for the drugs. When Jaime Gao, seated in a chair, realized what was happening, he reached for a knife. In response, Rogerson pulled the trigger twice. He also mentioned that Rogerson threatened his family if he wouldn't help dispose of the body. Roger Rogerson's explanation was far less plausible. He claimed he was not involved in the shooting at all. Instead, he alleged that he arrived to find Jaime already dead, and that McNamara told him he had shot himself. For 52 nights, Roger Rogerson and Glenn McNamara slept within centimeters of each other in the same cell. Both spent many hours together, often discussing the case they have been charged with and swapping notes about the brief of evidence. But before their first trial, McNamara realized Rogerson's strategy was to set him up. Both pleaded not guilty to murder, but were convicted in June 2016 after a Supreme Court trial, and both received life sentences. In 2021, they both failed to have their convictions overturned in the New South Wales Court of Criminal Appeal. On January 18, 2024, Rogerson was taken to Prince of Wales Hospital after suffering an aneurysm. He was taken off life support and passed on January 21, 2021 at the age of 83. For 2 men who were once detectives, their plan was undone by a simple modern reality. Cameras are everywhere. The case was built on what might be one of the most extensive use of CCTV footage in Australian criminal history.